Happy CX Day, everyone, and welcome to what we all know is one of the greatest days of the year. I'm Gabe Smith, CCXP, and I am the Content Manager and Associate Director for the Customer Experience Professionals Association, or CXPA. So good to be with you this morning with our friends in the Oceania region, and we're here to get you started with an invigorating panel discussion on CX accomplishments in the region over the last year. So we also know that the theme this CX Day is CX as a team sport. You know, we know that though one person can make an impact, we certainly celebrate the impact of individuals. We'll be celebrating them a little bit later today as we announce our Impact Award winners. We know that it's really, though, the team working together, working with one another that can really achieve that maximum level of CX success. So what exactly is it that makes a great CX team? How do you build that team? How do you maintain a great team? And what do each of our panelists in the Oceania region think is critical to moving your career forward and achieving that success, both for your own organizations as well as for yourselves? I couldn't be more excited to be facilitating that discussion with today's panelists. So without further ado, here they are.
Hi, I'm Andy McCutcheon. Happy CX Day. I'm the Customer Experience Manager for Web Central here in Melbourne, Australia.
Good morning. Happy CX Day, everyone. My name is Saiful Nasir. I'm the founder of CXD Labs.
Welcome, everyone, to CX Day. I'm Mike Dyson, the Senior Manager of Capability and Experience Design for MBN Co.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to sunny Queensland. My name's Kylie Green, and I'm the Corporate Customer Experience Coordinator at Logan City Council, and happy CX Day.
Good morning from Auckland, Aotearoa, New Zealand. I'm Jane Treadwell-Hoye. I'm CCXP, and I'm currently in between roles looking to do some contract consulting.
Fantastic, and happy CX Day, and good morning to all of you. So glad to have you with us today. So, I want to start out and just have a discussion, because I think, the beautiful thing about CX Day is it's a day to celebrate. It's everything that we've accomplished over the past year. I think in CX, we can get so caught up on all the improvements that we have yet to make, where we fell short, what we have yet to do. But CX Day is a chance to come together and say, hey, we've actually done a lot this year. Let's talk about it and let's celebrate it. So, Andy, I want to start with you. What's a CX accomplishment looking back that you're really proud of over this past year?
I've got so much to be proud of this year. This time last year, we had a brand new executive team step into the company and take over. And I've been really amazed at the level of customer listening that we've been doing. They've been really focused on fixing all those problems. We're hearing in voice of customer feedback, and we've just seen the results. We've seen our last 2 quarters. We've had our highest NPS we've ever recorded for the company, and we're just seeing monthly increases on CSAT every single month. So it's just blown me away the last year. It's been great.
Fantastic, Andy. That's so great. Realizing that measurable improvement is shot in the arm for all of us CX professionals. Sai, how about you? Looking back, something you're particularly proud of?
Similar to Andy, where there's a distinctive measurable benefit that we got. So one of the key focuses for one of our clients was to look at benefit realization as a framework and propping up a improvement squad to look at the journey and understanding where the pain points are for the customers, and focusing on 3 key metrics, which was FCR, the first call contact resolution, average handling time, and then looking at FTE improvement just overall. And we last week was actually the release of the performance result based on the benefit realization piece, and we saved about 163 in AHT. which was significant, accounts for about 16% average handling time improvement. And savings overall is around about 570K, which is quite significant for a small squad of CX professionals and developers. So that was a massive win. And now we're seeking for budget for the next year to prop up another team to do exactly the same. So how CX can drive those kind of improvements, it's been very refreshing.
That's excellent. I mean, we know cost savings and ROI. That's the name of the game right there. So glad to hear that. Jane, let me come over to you. What's something as you look back you want to share?
I've just come off 3 years as head of customer experience at Z Energy, which is New Zealand's only 100% owned fuel company. And one of the things we achieved in the last 12 months in particular was the culmination of the previous 2 years' efforts. So we landed the experience strategies, we landed the journey maps, we spent the last 6 months in particular, so first half of this year, working with our people and culture team to embed the CX operating model that I designed, and then work with them to embed that as part of ways of working and transform the business from functional teams, cross-functional teams, to cross-functional value streams, investment streams that are very much focused on the experiences that the business wants to deliver to the target customers. And that's really been 3 years of hard slog, really transforming that business into understanding customer and getting that operating model in, and the Z how, which is what we called it, was something that I'm really proud of delivering.
Yeah, I love how you frame that, getting through the hard slog, and getting to see the fruits of those efforts. That's so great to hear. Very cool. Mike, what are you proud of over the last year?
I think very similar to everyone else. NBN, for yourself and for people overseas, we're the internet infrastructure provider, so the wholesaler. And you can imagine with lockdowns, with everyone having to work from home and everything else, there's never been a more vital time that you want your internet working. And being a government entity and a few political things, it's been a really interesting and a hard CX journey for us. But the proof point of how we've operated, how we've supported the nation through the entire duration of the pandemic has been amazing. And I think the other thing as well, we're starting to really see the dividends return on some of those programs that were taking at faith value to begin with, which have really demonstrated measurable returns and changes in perception, even between the industry itself. So some of these ideas of simplification and promotion of how to do experience better are now being used on every single transaction, and that kind of uplift and the fact that the satisfaction even from our providers to us on our tool sets is the highest it's sort of ever been. So it's watching all that stuff come to life, and then obviously the crux of really being the crucible of trying to support everyone in the country to be able to operate in such a digital fashion has been really amazing.
Yeah, and I think, as I talk to CX professionals around the globe, it's sort of a similar story. This last year has brought challenges unlike anything we've ever seen. And yet for CX, in terms of helping to drive understanding of the importance of the work that we do, it's never been more important than ever. And hearing your stories of success really drives that home. So Kylie, would love to hear your perspective on this in terms of successes that you've seen over the last year.
Yeah, similar to Mike. So I work in local government. So really the community does come to us in their time of need, especially during COVID. So we were really excited to launch our first customer experience strategy at the end of 2020. And that's our first CX strategy. So previous to that, we had customer service strategies. So that's really going to set our direction for the next 4 years. But I think what I'm most proud of is we are a really diverse community with 217 different cultures. And being different cultures, our community are clear we're not digital by default. So actually helping them shift to be more digital and more online, especially going into lockdowns and making sure we're still meeting their needs.
Yeah. Congratulations on that and making the shift, from service to experience. That's no small feat. So very cool to hear that. One of the things I also love about CX Day is, we get a chance to hear from CX pros around the world, and we get a chance to celebrate CX excellence. And, here in the United States, we have ideas of what CX excellence is, what companies are delivering it, but may not have insight into what CX excellence is, how it's being delivered in Australia, and what companies specifically are delivering it. So we'd love to hear for our global audience, what are some examples, some companies in your country that you think are particularly CX focused? Any examples, if possible, would be great as well. So I don't know who wants to jump in first here.
I have a good one from, and it's almost an institution in Australia, Bunnings. So Bunnings as an organisation, they provide hardware, tool services, all the rest of it. For us, we love going down there on a weekend to get a sausage sizzle. There's always some charity event running sausages at the front. But they're really community-based, and they have two real core things around their community base. They're really good at their employment around people who would not be considered traditional employment. So they hire a lot of people in later years. They hire people with certain types of disabilities and special needs. And they had to support all those people through the lockdown, and what they did there around how they provided new work and ability to manage support networks. And the second thing as well is they have a lot of customers who Bunnings was their only way to connect socially. So they would live on their own, and obviously the social problem through lockdown with these individuals. And they stood up this whole contact center just to provide almost like have a yarn, have a chat, like the support programs for these people. They supported stuff with building out little custom-made do-it-yourself kits for people who were trying to do stuff for the kids in lockdown, like a whole range of just activities and support that they took in the lockdown and supported both their own team and those ones who are struggling with not being able to go into the physical locations and be upskilled rapidly to change, and then also making sure that they connected with their community and those customers. And it had no value, from a dollar percent for them. It was really just a cultural thing for them around supporting, especially these people who are living on their own. And Bunnings was really their prime source of contact. So it was really inspiring.
That's fantastic. Yeah, we talk a lot at CXPA about the intersection of diversity, equity, and inclusion with CX. And I think that you've provided a really compelling example of how powerful that can be in terms of, brand perception. So I think that's fantastic. Other thoughts from you?
I was just going to build on what Mike was saying. Here in Aotearoa, New Zealand, we have a supermarket chain which is called Foodstuffs, and they have brands which is New World, Pack and Save, and then Foursquare. And New World tends to be more of a premium brand. Pack and Save is more of your sort of mid-range brand, and then Foursquare is your local smaller supermarket in regional small town New Zealand. And one of the things that they've been focusing on, I don't actually know if they have a formal CX program per se, but to Mike's point about Bunnings doing things in the community, New Zealand is in its second big lockdown. So we're currently locked down in L4, which is our most severe, can't leave the house. And what Foodstuffs has been doing, led by their North Island CEO, has been reaching out to the community where groups are trying to get food parcels to people or needing warehousing space. Each of the individual supermarkets is owned by a local franchise holder, so they're really embedded in the community, and some of them have been doing some amazing things. So at the moment, the only reason we can leave the house is to medical or food. And so I rock off to our local Foodstuff supermarket, Pack and Save, and they've got security guards and they've got a beat box, and the queuing is easy, and you're all 2 meters and masked up, and the experience is a really good one. It's really easy to get in and out. But on the other side of it, they're doing a huge amount in the community, providing warehouse space when other businesses donate goods to be distributed and food boxes to those who are really suffering financial hardship during lockdown because there is no income coming into some of these families. They've been donating, funny enough, toilet paper and all sorts of other things. So it's really embedding the sense of we are in this together. the experience we deliver is about our people, not just our people who we work with and who work in our stores, but we're an integral part of the community, and that experience has to be seamless.
Yeah, it's one of the things that we were chatting about earlier is this idea that in some ways we are experiencing the pandemic differently depending on where we are in the world, but sort of this common theme of, and hearing in these success stories of brands that are sort of stepping up to the plate and delivering the blocking and tackling of CX, right, to keep with that CX as a team sport, but also contributing to the larger social good, which is what I hear here. Any other companies in Australia, New Zealand that you want to call out as being particularly CX focused?
I'd like to share one for another local government. So Burundara Council, they're actually based in Victoria. So they have been in lockdown for so much of this year, where I'm really blessed. I've been in lockdown only a couple of times, and as you can see, I'm in the office. But they took the approach on how they work and how they lead, where they do it individually and collectively to deliver for the customers. So they actually started off with a CX improvement plan, and now they've actually put in place, moved into their customer first program. And so this is one council or one local government in Australia who's really leading the way about working to get together to deliver community priorities and placing the customers at the heart of everything they do. And for those that don't really know local government context, we are really complex organisations. So as an example, here in Logan, we have 5 directorates made up of 23 branches and 95 programs. So it's where all that silos come into play. But Burundara is really breaking down those silos and working collectively as that team to deliver on what matters most for their community. Recommend follow them on LinkedIn, check out their website. They're doing amazing things.
And speaking of CX successes, we want to give a huge thanks to our CX Day sponsors, each of whom makes this panel and all that we're doing on CX Day really possible. This year, we've created online homes for each sponsor. These pages include some great resources, downloadable content, and even some really nice giveaways. Please take a moment to visit these pages and, of course, to thank these organizations for their great support of CX, CX Day, and CXPA. CX Day is a chance to find out what CX professionals are thinking about, in regions, operating in regions other than their own. So, Sai, I want to come to you on this one. What are some of the hot issues right now for customers, for customer experience, and for customer experience professionals in the Australia, New Zealand region?
It's a good question, Gabe. So I'll start off with the customer. What we've realized was with the acceleration of a lot of digital fronts to a lot of companies, everyone's jumping onto the web a lot quicker. A lot of the digital programs that companies had, now they're starting to offer it on a digital basis. The remote connectivity and also chatting with someone via things such as live chat has proliferated across the whole industry. And what that entails is now customers have a significantly increased amount of choice in terms of who they go with. And because they can now, it's at their fingertips in terms of accessing a lot of these companies, they're very picky in terms of which companies they go with. So this is something that we've noticed when we're looking at some of the clients. Their digital channel uptake has increased. However, it doesn't necessarily translate into increasing acquisitions of sales. So suddenly you start to go, well, how do we differentiate ourselves from a digital channel? And we start to look at journeys specifically targeting accessing the digital front, just to see if there's any point of differentiation that could set someone apart from their competitors. So suddenly our focus was not just more on the service design stuff or the retail front or looking at the experience of a customer coming into the store, or it's now, well, what's the experience they're going to come digitally and how do we differentiate ourselves? Is it we got to put different copies, or is there a video interaction? Is there a tool that they can use for free? And suddenly a lot of the more freemium options start to come up just to entice customers onto the online channel. So from a customer's perspective, their choice has increased. So therefore, you really got to hone into your digital journey.
Yeah.
And then from a company's perspective, suddenly all the investments is about, well, how do we, that 1 second loading save time that we have on our pages does make a difference, because customers now can just easily switch to another competitor. So that's one of the I think it's actually quite tricky, even though a lot of budget is placed onto digital programs for a lot of organizations, is then how do you prioritize which part to take? Do you focus on getting your CRM up to speed, or do you then go, well, I think we need to revamp our whole branding and our whole online journey, rather than a static web page now has to be more dynamic. You can do more things on the web pages. So we start to see that's probably the core challenge. And what that means is that CX professional has to really start becoming technologically savvy, or at least IT literate. So they need to know when someone says CRM, what does that mean? Or CTR is like, now it's a marketing term from a digital channel. What does that mean from a CX side? And so CX professionals suddenly had to ramp up their understanding about, well, how do you build in journeys from a digital front? So I think that's something that definitely noticed ever since the pandemic hit.
Yeah. Great point, Sai. And, I guess a question to the group for who wants to take this one. How do you help your organization navigate those changes? And as you mentioned, that prioritization in terms of being able to put customer journeys in context, so you can contextualize this, digital adoption. How do you go about doing that?
It's given it the sense of some of its volume and understanding the connectedness, right? So one of the things that I've regularly talk about is that you can always find pain points, right? There are more pain points than there are stars in the sky, right? It's how do I understand which ones are the crucial ones to my success? And it's actually understanding the frequency of those pain points and the kind of how much it throws you off your game, and balance that against a shared set of capabilities. I think all of us have this issue at the moment that we've all got, limited resources, limited time, and we've got to deal with these issues. Where is the best spot? And it's that blend of understanding where are my core capability gaps, how many pain points there are, and how frequent that occurs, that allows me to pull those ones out. Because it's really easy to go after the loud pain point, the one that fully throws everyone off the game. But sometimes the reality of those really vocal loud points or loud problems is they only happen maybe once every 20,000 transactions. But there will be those smaller ones that happen in every single transaction, and they're the ones that are slowly chipping away at everything. And I think, Sai, you sort of mentioned it around, that things like 1 second load times, there's all this other stuff that kind of drives to that. My personal mantra I have is solve for effort. No matter where you go, and I solve for effort, wherever there's high effort, there's always going to be, low customer experience. There's going to be low employee engagement. And really got to understand how much the employee engagement and what they do impacts the customer experience. There's going to be a high cost to serve, and there's going to be high quality problems. So every time I solve for effort, I really solve for all of those things at once, and that will just bring your customer experience up.
Yeah.
I think also one of the other issues tied into both what Sai and Mike have said is we're going through a significant period of microscope on the businesses themselves. So CX as a strategy becomes even more important, not just a tactical operational side to CX. As more and more businesses are feeling the squeeze financially and looking to take money out of business and look at where they can make savings, the actual need to have a really clear CX North Star as part of your business strategy becomes even more important, because as Sai was mentioning, smaller, nimble, more agile businesses who can quickly react in a digital only world are taking it to some of the established corporates and companies. And I think what I'm seeing is the value of CX and the need for CX and differentiating on that experience is beginning to be recognised, and early days and immature state of understanding at what we would traditionally have classed a tier 3 even size business. They're not your large national or internationals, not even your large regionals, but now even the only player in town might be X, but suddenly you've got these smaller, nimble businesses that have recognized that simply by setting up a quick Shopify site with some smarts around it, they can actually aggregate sales and drive and take market share from you. So really understanding what your North Star CX strategy is and how that plays out as you operationalize and differentiates, becoming more and more clear, which for professionals is great because it means there's more and more work in the market at the moment. I don't know about my colleagues in Australia, but definitely here, the number of fixed term contracts, contracting, consultancy, and permanent roles has gone through the roof in the last 12 months. That's on the market, people looking for people to fill these types of roles.
Yeah, absolutely, Jane. That is a great point. At CXPA, we've certainly seen a large recognition of the critical importance of these types of roles. You can check out cxjobboard.com if you want to take a look at some CX jobs around the globe. Check that out. Great point. And Kylie, I want to come to you because you had mentioned that one of your accomplishments was sort of the shift from customer service orientation to a customer experience orientation. So would love to learn a little bit more about that and sort of the context that everyone's been talking about in the pandemic and digital adoption and sort of everything that's been going on. Would love to learn a little bit more about that work.
Yeah, definitely. And I think this is probably one thing I'm most passionate about, and it's really understanding our community profile and that shift for us. So as I mentioned, it was really the old channels. It was phone, face-to-face, which was our preferred for our community. So our shift to really promoting the online and the use of online services. We were really lucky. We went through a website transformation process started in 2019 and went live in 2020. So our old website was previously written at postgraduate level, and it didn't meet the needs for our whole community, as in people would go to the website, couldn't easily find what they were looking for, and it was just causing all this additional channel shift and effort on their side. So we took a step back. I had no idea about websites at all, but I think it's that Richard Branson quote, if you're given an opportunity, you don't have the skills, you say yes and you learn as you go. But what I did know was customer. So we really got an understanding of our community profile. And for us, we've got 217 different cultures. 26% of our community were born overseas. 16% speak another language at home other than English. And 35% of our community left school at grade 10 or lower. So we were writing our website at a postgraduate level. So straight away, we were already disadvantaging 35% of our community. And then when you actually look with, I said, 16% speak another language at home other than English, written at postgraduate, when you actually then use Google Translate, it can't translate it right into their language. So we're disadvantaging those 16% that speak another language at home. So our biggest thing was making sure that now anyone, no matter their ability, no matter their background, where they've come from, can go to our website, navigate it, and find the right information at the right time. And so that's whether you've got accessibility issues, whether you speak another language. So we've created a truly inclusive site. Our readability is at a grade 9 or lower to meet the whole needs, and then it helps with Google Translate. And then the whole navigation, it meets the web content accessibility guidelines. So I think that big project and push now has given the community the trust that we are doing what's right for them, because for us, it's not really, it's more value for our community. We do look at cost to serve internally, but governments are slightly different. We're not chasing market share or things like that. So yeah, but I think that was the biggest win for our community. So now anyone can access the information 24/7.
That's fantastic. What a great success story. And speaking of success, we know that the theme for today, CX is a team sport. So I want to go round robin. I want to go around the panel here. And Andy, I want to start with you. What makes a great CX team?
really having a cross-functional team, I think, is important. I'm from a software development background, which is a strange sort of path to customer experience, but it means I can step in and have those conversations with the technology teams and with development teams. I think, really having a team who can talk all the different languages depending on the issue is important, because as we know, customer experience covers all the touch points in a customer journey. We could be called on to do sort of any sort of project, any sort of task, or be sort of a bit of a pseudo expert in any kind of field at any time. I really look for cross-functional team members.
Yeah, that's such a great point, Andy, and it aligns with some of the work we're doing at CXPA, which is one big project right now is a group of CX professionals from around the globe are working to deliver a set of documents that's really around how do you facilitate effective CX across large multi-department organizations? How do you talk to someone in your IT department? How do you talk to your chief financial officer, your finance team, to make sure that goals are aligned and that we're on the same page and sort of speaking that same language as you referenced. So I'm excited to share more about that in the coming days. Sai, same question to you. What makes a great CX team?
To completely, in Australia, there's a word called ditto. I don't know if it's no. So I totally agree with what Andy was saying before. Understand the cross-functional team. Ditto. I totally agree that that's something that strive for a good CX team. Also, the other thing is that although they're cross-functional, they all have the same shared vision, same shared goals. I think that's quite important when it comes to ensuring that the team is moving in the same direction, and they could be taking different paths, but at least we're all focusing on the same thing. And one of the key things with that is to not only understand it from the team's goals and how it also aligns back to the organizational's vision. So that's one great thing about a CX team that comes together, that understands that shared vision, is that all conflicts or all disputes can all hone back down to the shared vision. And understanding that that's one way of path moving forward. But another thing is with regards to what Andy was saying about cross-functional teams, is also to respect individuals' roles and also their expertise and what they bring towards the team. So striving for individual excellence. So you have a team across disciplines. So I see teams that have software developers that have an inclination towards CX, so similar to what Andy was saying before. But also sometimes have testers that have the same thing, or have other design disciplines such as user experience people that in teams, but they all have the same shared vision, reduce AHT, for example, for the customers, and having that. And respecting that they have a role to play in the team, it's significantly massive. And having that respect and radical candor, highly recommend people read Kim Scott's book about radical candor. Excellent book. Is how to communicate effectively and challenge directly and by caring personally. So those three attributes.
Yeah, I love that, and sort of the implied message there too is you need a great CX leader to be able to drive that sort of alignment in terms of vision. So
absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. Mike, what makes a great CX team to you?
Adding beyond those, I think some of the ones that also is resilience. I think in terms of great CX teams, you spend a lot of time either going into the deep, dark edges of your organization and seeing all the problems, and trying not to go open up a bottle of scotch by 3 o'clock in the afternoon can be very hard, right, when you're really in the deep end. And so having that ability to be resilient in there and resilient to obviously the how to bring that story to life around why it's important. And then the flip sides of that as well, there's also the balance you need internally as well. So we also have a struggle, I think, as CX professionals sometimes of being so hyper-focused in on the problems that we forget to celebrate our successes as well. So we got to also bring that sense of balance to our lives of basically going, this is where we're doing well. Otherwise, you can turn your entire engagement model with your staff inside to just focusing on so much negatives as well. And there are obviously great things. That's why you're a company. That's why you're delivering stuff. And then probably the last one I'll add to that is the ability to make it connect and real. You know, how do you get storytelling? How do you make this feel like people can actually resonate with the CX story you're telling and something that relates to them personally they do on a daily basis? So then for them, they make it real, and then they're really part of your broader CX team now. So those three things I think are quite crucial to run a really cool good CX team.
Yeah, I love it, Mike. And key takeaway for me, you know, don't wait till CX Day to celebrate your CX successes with your team. So fantastic. I love that. Kylie, I want to come to you. You know, I love your perspective on this, given some of the work that you've been doing. What makes a great CX team?
Similar to what all the gents have said, so it is that balance of technical, and most people still call them soft skills, but I actually call them hard skills, which is the people side, the empathy, the creativity, the critical thinking, a team that's curious, decision making, problem solvers, so everything that they've said, but they all know they've got a key role to play. But yeah, it's those soft skills, which I've renamed hard skills, because not everyone can be there and be an empathetic listener, an active listener. They are actually hard skills to get. So yeah, for me, it's that balance.
Yeah, simple but not easy, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So Jane, you know, I love your perspective as somebody who, you know, is coming out of a 3-year hard slog of change. I know you've got a lot to say on this. What makes a great CX team?
I think for me, it's the leadership too. The CX leader needs to have the ear of the exec, and it does come down to seeing CX as a strategy and not something that's being done to the business, but as a fundamental part of the DNA of the organisation. I'm a firm believer, and I've been this way since I worked in legal technology many years ago. The power of everyone is what makes things tick. So once you have your CX team up and running and you've got, and I completely endorse what Kylie just said, it's the curiosity, it's the people skills. Mike was referencing storytelling. It's an incredibly important part of that. And at Z, we had CX Hub, which was right front and center on the intranet, and anyone and everyone could go there and see multimedia video clips, partially done wireframing, market research, customer research, all the strategies, all the journey maps, regardless of whether they were complete or not, work in progress stuff. The communication is really important. The team itself, to Alex and Andy and Sai's referencing, has got to be multidisciplinary, and it also has to have some element of change management skill set in there as far as I'm concerned, because you're trying to change, and change management is not something that comes easy to people, and you don't want people feeling like they're having it done to them. One of the other things I believe in is that the whole organisation is your CX team. It's not just the professionals who are working in the mire of the day-to-day, but the sooner you can find the pockets of enthusiastic evangelists, the better. And in a former role, when I was working at LexisNexis in a global role, we were actually encouraging our CX evangelists, and we called them CX champions. And what that meant was, didn't matter what part of the business you were in, finance, HR, IT, product development, supply chain, whatever it was, if you were passionate about customer and actually wanting to understand how to improve experience, then you became part of this group that met monthly, because the ideas coming through from those teams that aren't traditionally seen as customer facing or as customer impacting is actually gold, because the frontline teams will often identify, to Mike's earlier comment, the effort that goes in to get stuff done. And so strong team, strong leader, multidisciplinary, but the whole organization should be the CX team.
Yeah, really great perspective, Jane. And I want to stay with you for this this next question. because we've talked about what makes a great team. Well, then I think the next question is, okay, if I'm starting out, how do I build that team? What am I looking for? How do I go about doing that? What are the traits of a good player on my team? So what advice would you share for anyone who's sort of wondering that?
Technical skill is without a doubt. You need someone who can actually do the technical stuff. So you need someone who can use the tools. And during lockdown last year, we successfully ran a significant number of co-creation workshops using Microsoft Teams and Miro, because we just had to modify our behavior and adapt quickly. And so you need people who are technically competent. But I'm always looking for the hunger to learn, the natural curiosity, people who constantly question why, people who are good team players and are not. So each of us has our own strengths, and we're all individuals, and you're trying to put together the best patchwork quilt of skills. So you need your quiet, reflective thinkers as much as you need your extrovert storytellers who'll go along to team morning tea sessions and just do stand-up vox pop type 10-minute updates on what's going on. But you also need to ensure you've got people who can talk to all ages, all ethnicities, and all levels of the organisation. So communication skills is a really strong one for me too. Yeah,
that's great. And Andy, I'd love your perspective here too, as somebody, whose team has achieved a lot of success over the last year in terms of, some of the metrics you mentioned. What are the qualities that you look for when you're building a team?
Yeah, I think you really need to make sure the team's infinitely approachable. I think as a CX team, we can create a great customer experience for our employees. I think, if someone does reach out to the CX team for help, or to get involved in a project or to give some advice, and they have a bad experience themselves, that's just going to turn people off doing the customer experience thing in future. So I think you just have to be always available, always willing to jump on and help where you're needed.
Yeah. So great point. So talking about building a team, but then also maintaining your team, motivating your team, these are all critical pieces for a CX leader as well. So Kylie, I'd love your perspective. How do you maintain, how do you motivate your CX team members?
Yeah, and this has been an interesting journey for me because we have moved to the hybrid model. Normally when you're in an office and you're working together, you've got that banter, you've got that face-to-face where you can brainstorm ideas and things like that. But with now hybrid working environments, so for me, to actually motivate, communication is key. So along with understanding what drives each individual, but then empowering them to do their role and learn from them, because no one's an expert at everything. So it's about learning, understanding their way of thinking, their ideas. For me, the worst mistake is to hire the smart people and tell them what to do. And a lot of empathy. And we've got a bit of a motto, it's work hard, play hard. So yeah. It's just making sure you still create that same environment, even though it's hybrid, whether it's via a Teams meeting. I actually call it the Brady Bunch. I'm not sure if you all know the Brady Bunch show, where I've got all their faces across the screen. So, and sometimes we just have meetings where it is not work related. So it is just sitting there, finding out how their weekend was. It could be picking on each other, because that's what we like to do in our work hard, play hard, but it's all as a term of endearment. So, yeah.
Yeah, great points. And, Sai, I want to ask you, and then I'll come to you, Mike, how in this hybrid or virtual environment, how do you motivate your CX teams?
Yeah, that has been a tough question, I have to admit. Again, to sound what everyone's been saying, the focus has been a lot more on what Kylie would say, hard skills, right? The communication skills, the empathy, is because you're constantly now on the lens, and people just see your head. They don't see anything else underneath, and you can't show the movement of your head. You you lose 70% of what the person is communicating. So you're overloaded trying to figure out what that person's thinking, how they're feeling, and that is hard. And what happens is when you usually, well, for us Australians, it's such a big place, and you got to commute to work and then commute back. And the thing is, that hour is our time. That 1 hour on the train and walking is our time. The lunchtime walk is our time. But now it's filled up with Zoom meetings and Teams or whatever your flavor is. So to keep teams motivated and to transition, there's a few things that we've imposed. So one is respect people's time. So we literally block out your mornings. Just block out your mornings. Make sure you have a decent amount of lunch, or a time to at least have lunch. If you don't have lunch, it's okay. At least you have that time back. So there's the me time. That's definitely imposed. There's also, I think I've heard it around even the chats here, just have meetings for the sake of just banter, just having a chat and opening it up that we are all humans at the same time. We are also trying to not impose, but when there are kids at home, homeschooling is a massive thing, and in lockdowns and everywhere else, when you have kids at home, it's okay if they come in and interrupt the session, and just buffering a little bit of time for those moments where parents just get slightly distracted because of their child, and it's an okay thing. That has been, it's more not longer the technical stuff, because even if in the office or remotely, we can all do our jobs. Like coming up with a CX strategy and executing it, as long as we're mostly predominantly on the computer anyway, and running workshops, we can do a Miro. So the technical part, yep, it's all covered because we can switch easily. It's the other stuff, the constant over communication, the number of chats. I go out for lunch, come back, the Slack session like messages have gone about 100. I'm like, I can't keep up. So just respecting people's time and their energy, and also blocking of that time has been something very fruitful for our team. So
yeah, great points. Really great. Great to hear all of that articulated. Totally appreciate all of that. Mike, your thoughts on maintaining?
Yeah, I do very similar things. So we have a daily coffee club, we call it. No work talk allowed, and if anyone does, they get penalties. Usually I'm the one who gets the penalty, but anyway. That really helps connect everyone through all of this sort of process. So, and we mix up the coffee club as well. So not only do we just have it within our team, but on the Thursday, it's a broader team. It's a different group. It's people coming, other people in. We can invite other people in. So that way, then you kind of get a little bit of diversity in terms of the conversations, and we talk about whatever Netflix show we're watching and all sorts of stuff. And then beyond that, I think is really about making space. I think obviously what you said around blocking out the mornings, I swear it's just back-to-back sessions from 8 till 6, it feels like. And you don't get a break. God forbid you can go lunch or, facilities or anything. So every session I open, I said my mission for this session is to finish it early. And you will just watch that sense of relief with everyone to go, right, we're going to finish this thing early. We know we've booked an hour, but we're going to do this in 45. And that's going to give you space. And I booked that to give you space. And even just coming into those meetings with that, even at the start with groups, to sit there and go, I know, this is going to give you time. I'm respecting your time is a really big thing as well. The other one as well is a safe word. This one seems really skilly, but in a way, but I think we can get really lost with all our meetings. People looking at calendars, they need to have a chat with you, but they can't. They don't want to. They feel a bit awkward about putting some of this conversation into Teams. So how do you create a safe word that means, look, I really need you. I'm struggling with something. Something's going on. I just need you. And so when that safe word occurs, it's your commitment as a leader to then go, right, I'm dropping. You are important to me, and I'm dropping what I'm doing right now to then actually delve into it, because you wouldn't use that safe word anything else. And I think that's the real crucial thing, because when you're in the office, you can see people, you can see how they're working, you can see how they're reacting. If you're not in a meeting with them, you don't know how they are, and it's a real big risk to them on ensuring that they're okay. So you got to give them that ability, and you got to give them the confidence that you'll respond to it, and that way then they'll that gives them that mental security and support network they're looking for.
So Final question for the group. What is one piece of career advice that you would like to give to a CX professional in your region?
Take the opportunities presented to you. You never know what you can do unless you give it a go.
I'm not sure if it's just one piece, but my motto is never stop listening and learning. And find your tribe early on in your career, because they're the ones where you can go and soundboard things off, even if you need advice, even if you need a little kick or a little mojo hit, because our role at times is hard, but it's so rewarding at the same time.
So quite similar to what everyone was saying, that sense of finding your community. But I think the other one that you really want to kind of learn into is basic maths. I think Sai has been mentioning about the importance of knowing AHT and all the rest of it, but just having that basic maths where it's like, it's this many transactions, it takes this long against, this much people hours, that becomes such a powerful thing when you're trying to express the value of CX. And everyone gets really concerned about, how do I express what I'm doing and its value? So learning those real basic math skills is a real good way of communicating with an organization and being very successful.
Absolutely. Something that I find to be a telling point whether or not that individual is going to succeed within this particular role in the CX is whether or not they're starting that role or they're already in the organization about to transition into the role. Is that one thing you got to remember is CX might be lonely at times, where you're looking at a customer focus when other people might not be and they're focusing on their own thing. But then how do you then build a compelling story of that customer's experience and making sure that the story is impactful to everyone else? So what Mike was saying before about maths, and I would say the same thing about data. So you CX professionals, you got to start learning about how to use data in a way that is going to tell a compelling story and bring people onto the journey with you, and just love that whole process. And also to resonate with what Kylie and Jane were saying before, just continuously be hungry to learn, just continuously learn and absorb. And one thing that I highly advise is, if you are in the CXPA, there's the CXPA forum. When I first started out, I used to go to that forum just to get info, and I leave some feedback and comments as well. I found the discussions there quite diverse, so you can learn quite a lot about the CX industry, not just what's been covered within the syllabus, but also outside. So those three things.
Really great advice from everyone so far. I'll just add, I think be bold. And if you're a shy person, learn to pretend to be bold, because you're going to have to stand up for the customer. You're possibly going to have to push back against some senior decisions on behalf of the customer. So be prepared to stand there and stand your ground and have those conversations.
Be bold. Thank you, Andy, for that final piece of wisdom. And thank you to each of our panelists today, Jane, Kylie, Sai, and Mike as well, for your tremendous insights. So appreciated. And if you have enjoyed the conversation today and you'd like to be a part of it, please visit us at cxpa.org/Oceania. Would love to see you become a part of this community. And if you're also interested in learning more about a special offer that we have for new CXPA members, check it out at cxday.org. Until then, happy CX Day, everyone.